Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to OpenMicVO. This Sunday evening event is about all of us getting together as a community to share stories and knowledge, to get and to give advice, and to collaborate on problems that participants might bring up to pose to the group tonight. We feature a different topic every week, and this week's topic is voiceover for animation and video games. This group's all about being positive and supportive of each other. There's participants tonight at all different stages of their careers as voice actors, and everybody is welcome here. So everybody's a professional as well. So make sure that we all treat each other with the level of respect that we all deserve. To the new members of the voice acting community that might be here tonight, welcome. And there's no such thing as a silly question. So go ahead and ask away. The rules are simple. Please mute yourself at your end if you're not actively participating in the conversation at that particular moment. I certainly invite you to unmute and to add as much as you can to the chat and to ask questions and to provide advice. But if you're not actively participating, please press the little microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner, and that will mute you. And that way we don't get any problems with dogs barking, and sometimes we get echo and feedback and things like that. Second rule, be nice. Be nice to each other. And the third rule is please remember that we're recording, and the recordings are posted to YouTube. And the reason why that's important is just remember that if you decide you're going to share any sort of information that could be sensitive or proprietary. I can't control where it ends up once it hits YouTube. I want to take a moment to thank VoiceZam.com for sponsoring OpenMicVO. VoiceZam is a unique demo player that, amongst dozens of other things, allows casting directors to zero in on very specific reads in your demo. You can learn more at VoiceZam.com. Don't forget to use the promo code OpenMic, OPENMIC. And if you use that promo code, then you will have your trial period extended from 15 days to 30 days. So you'll have a full month to try out all the VoiceZam features and figure out whether it's the right thing for you or not. Tonight, Bob Merkel is with us on the call. He's the founder and creator of VoiceZam. And about halfway through tonight's session, he's going to be giving us a little 5 or 7 minute demo on one of the really cool new features of VoiceZam. So let's get started. Tonight's topic is voiceover for animation and video games. Once you see that I've unmuted you, feel free to ask the first question or tell us the first story as it relates to animation and video games. Remember to mute yourself if you are not going to be the first to get us started with a question or with an anecdote. So I'm going to start unmuting people. And once you see that you're unmuted, if you could either mute yourself or get us started. I should also mention that if you do not have the very latest version of the Zoom software client, I can't unmute you, which means that you're going to have to exit the webinar, go to Zoom and download it's zoom.us, download the latest version of the software, and then come on back in and I can get you unmuted then. So once again, tonight we're talking about animation and video games. And if you want to get us started with a question or a comment, an observation, feel free to go ahead and do so. I'm just working here on getting people unmuted, sorry. I do want to mention that a couple of weeks ago, there's a well-known coach out of Los Angeles by the name of Kate McClanahan. And Kate and I got together and we did a panel discussion on the outcomes of the video game strike, the new interactive media agreement that SAG-AFTRA negotiated with the video game production companies. It's a really interesting hour conversation. I had a journalist from The Hollywood Reporter on the panel. He was the guy that named Jonathan Handel, and he's the guy that followed the strike from beginning to end and wrote about it in The Hollywood Reporter. We had Keith Farley, who is the head of the negotiating team on behalf of the union, and we had very prominent voice actor who's done a lot of work in video games as well. And then there was Kate and I, and it was a really interesting conversation. So if you go to Straight Talk VO, which is this new vlog that Kate and I are working on, you can watch that panel discussion there. It's about an hour long, but it's well worth the time invested. Straight Talk VO. Go to that channel on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe while you're there. Just still getting people unmuted here. Tonight, again, we're talking about video games, animation. I see Michael Schwalbe is on with us tonight. Michael, if you're there, tell us about the big move to Los Angeles.
Well, sure. Hello, this is Michael Schwalbe, soon to be no longer in Nashville. I'm moving out to LA and joined the union, got some serious representation, and hoping to do a lot of animation and video game work out there.
But what's really exciting for me, Michael, with your story is that you got started in Nashville. You decided that video games was something you really wanted to get into and take seriously. You were able to start and develop your career from Nashville, which is admittedly a reasonably small market. And now you've got a kick-ass agent. You're moving to Los Angeles, all largely as a part of the animation and video game work you've been doing. Is that a fair statement?
It's sort of fair. Video games is probably actually even maybe more than half my income right now. But I think I had also managed to book a lot of pretty good commercial work that also helped my case. But I made some good connections in those fields, and a guy named Jason Marsden helped me with a great referral to CESD, and that's one of the ways that I managed to get them to agree to let me see them, talk to them, and read for them in person.
CESD, that's all.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a better agent?
I don't know. I don't know if there are any.
Well, that's the point. I mean, CESD is at the very top of the food chain out there in Los Angeles.
I'm blessed. So, I really am.
Well, it helps with you're talented too. So.
This is not the Michael Schwalbe hour, but thanks for the shout out.
Michael, interested in your thoughts on the outcome from the new interactive media agreement, and if you thought that we made much progress as actors, and if you think that we've laid some good groundwork for future negotiations.
Well, obviously I could talk on this for forever, and you probably could too. After that panel, you're probably as much or more of an expert than I am. But I think I would speak for a lot of us when I say that we're optimistic, we're disappointed, and we're also glad. I guess there's a lot of conflicting emotions with the end of this strike, because nobody wanted it to go as long as it did, least of all the working video game actors. And I turned down multiple sessions and didn't take an easy paycheck when they were offered to me, trying to, stand with solidarity. But so everybody's happy when the strike ends, because it means obviously we can go back to work. But the terms that we had been fighting for, we made some progress towards them. It's definitely a step in the right direction, but it definitely didn't accomplish a lot of what we had wanted. For those of you that don't know, there were a lot of things that were being discussed, including transparency in the roles and the session information, less strenuous or more safety for strenuous vocals, limiting the length of session times for strenuous sessions, which is very important to me because that's kind of my shtick. I do a lot of brutal monster sounds and stuff. And then safety, like they want safety directors for mocap sessions, which frequently are the voice actors doing the martial artsy stuff or the motion capture, and very little regulation on that front. And then they were these extra secondary compensations for depending on the sales of the game. And we got some extra money, some extra session fees. I forget exactly what the number is, but for each session you do, you get like a higher extra payment at the end of it, I think, which is good and bad. It's good because I think it means that everybody gets those regardless of how well the game sells, which is good.
That is correct.
So that's great because, only a very small number of games sold at the levels that would have triggered the previous extra payments. So that's good for the working class actors. But the transparency did get addressed. The strenuous vocals didn't at all. But to my understanding, there was kind of just a gentleman's agreement that like we'll try to be reasonable about it and not overwork our actors, but there wasn't anything in writing or anything. And that was about it. Nothing about the stunts or the mocap or anything. But at the very least, we made a little bit of progress, and we, showed some backbone to these big studios, and hopefully, the other people that are just being criminally overworked and underpaid in that industry, like the 3D artists and the programmers, and those people will also see that like, hey, the voice actors kind of banded together and stood up for fair working conditions and made some progress. So maybe we can too. So that, cause that was kind of the argument, was like, well, why do voice actors think they can lobby for these extra working conditions when so many other people in that business are just getting screwed? And our response, of course, is, well, we can't exactly lobby for you. You guys have to do that. And so you should try to support us. So if we win, there's precedent for you guys doing the same. So that's kind of my take on it.
Why is it you feel that we didn't have enough leverage to really push forward some of these agenda points that we wanted to? Like, did we have the support of the celebrity actors, and like, did everyone kind of get behind us?
I think I think so. I think it's mostly just that, and it sucks to admit it, but there just are a lot of people that really don't, like, a lot of the non-union actors just don't really care because they see it as their big break. And more and more on the newer actors, there's not, and this is kind of on the unions, I don't want to say fault, but there hasn't been a much of an outreach or a marketing thing to say to newer talent, hey, we're what you should be aspiring to. And so as a result, a lot of the newer talent that are like wannabe video game, anime, whatever, voice actors, they're not thinking of their goal as being a SAG-AFTRA member. Their goal is to get into one of these productions. And so that's part of it. But part of it also is that some of these large studios were already non-union. And so, for instance, Riot, that makes League of Legends, which is the biggest biggest free-to-play video game in the world, has like 20 million players. They've always been non-union. And so a company like Activision that makes Call of Duty can look at that and say, well, they've got, top tier, great sounding voice work in their game. They're non-union. Why shouldn't we be non-union? So they're also thinking that they can just ignore it and without much repercussion. Obviously, the really big budget games that are trying to get celebrities like Destiny, I think it was Destiny, tried to get Peter Dinklage, and Liam Neeson was in something or other. And so, celebrities aren't going to work if there's a strike, they're not relying on these video games to pay their bills, so they can strike indefinitely. But I think that the game manufacturers know that they don't really need those celebrities to get the sales, since so many titles don't have celebrities and still sell really well. So I think they were just trying to kind of call the bluff, and eventually, though, it did get too difficult, and they had a tough time sourcing enough top tier talent to fill out their games. So that's why they came back to the bargaining table, I assume. I doubt they came back out of the goodness of their hearts, So, yeah. So I think, again, it's a step in the right direction. We'll see what happens.
You're the eternal optimist, Michael.
Well, I try.
Who out there's got a question about video games, animation? We have, a couple of people, including Michael Schwalbe, on the call tonight that I know are quite well-established video game and animation actors. So we've got some good resources here on the call tonight to answer any questions that you might have.
Hey, Graham.
Yes.
Yes, this is Bob Merkel. I have a question. So who would be considered the buyer in the gaming and animation arena? And would they work through your agent, or are there many channels they work through? And also, when you're in the session, who do you work with? Would it be the writers or the gaming producer? And I guess maybe Michael or somebody else knowledgeable of that area. I'm not knowledgeable at all, and just kind of an aside question.
Michael, did you want to tackle that?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a little, the answer I think is the classic, it depends. There is a huge disparity and huge variety of video games and what those clients and what the studios and what the sessions look like. And for like the big budget things, I flew out to LA for a session I still can't talk about a couple months ago. And I was working, when I was in the studio, I was being directed by a director. I was being directed by a producer from the production company. And then I was also being directed by the sound designer from the game studio in Japan that had flown over. And so on the big side of things, that's kind of what it could look like. But in a lot of games, since I do casting and session direction too, a lot of times studio, and this is kind of how I pitched myself when I was getting started. It was pitching to these indie studios that maybe just had a one-person audio team, and just saying, hey, I can cast and direct your session and kind of wrangle all the voice talent so it makes your life easier. So in those sessions, it's just me, and I'm directing the talent just one-on-one, usually via Skype, sometimes in person. And in that case, maybe one of the developers might listen in and give some feedback. We had them do that a couple times, but usually that's almost more for like entertainment. They just want to see the process. They're not really offering a whole lot beyond just some questions here and there. So it just depends on the scale of the game and the scope of the project and what the audio is. Because, if it's a game that maybe has 20 characters that each have one or two lines just as like an attacking sound or something, that session's needs are going to be a lot different than a game that has like 15,000 lines of dialogue that's like super narrative driven, in which case it might almost be more like an audiobook session. Does that help at all? Was that the question you asked? I don't.
It was. Yeah, thank you. And just as a follow-up, I think the gaming community has evolved to now they're using professional voice over talent. It sounded like they were using the programmers at one time when games first emerged. I mean, is that the mentality now in the game developer? And I know there's different levels, but let's say the mid-range, they would go professionals now. I mean, that's what they do.
Oh yeah. They know better. And because video games, like, back in, and this is why we struck, honestly, at the core of it, is because the interactive agreement was from 1994, and when voice talent were like the developers of the games, you know. So so we drastically needed a touch up, and but now, you know, the kind of the key difference between video games and animation is that animation you enjoy for the spectacle. You're watching it for the entertainment of the antics of the people on screen, whereas in video games, usually your enjoyment is from immersion. And, you know, that may vary if it's like a puzzle game or a strategy or something, but a lot of games nowadays are relying on realism and immersion to entertain. It's almost escapism. So nothing ruins immersion faster than a bad voiceover. Because like graphics don't really matter, because like look at Minecraft or like other games that are very pixelated or blocky or have a unique art style, but the voiceover, you know, there's not really a good way to, I mean, maybe like The Sims or something that has kind of a garbled, kitschy voiceover, but that's not really for immersion. That's just, I don't know what you'd call that. But yeah, so even mid-range and indie developers know that if you're not using professional voice talent, your game is going to sound, it's going to ruin the immersion. It's going to sound amateur. And yeah, only the very, very, very smallest of studios aren't hiring professionals.
So what is the difference then, Michael, how do you approach acting in a video game different than you would approach acting in an animated series that maybe has somewhat similar plot lines?
Sure. So this is a kind of common question, and it's also the question usually is like, what's the difference between an animation demo and a video game demo? Like, how do I sell myself on that? And like I said, it goes back to the difference of immersion versus kind of animation spectacle over the topness. So, say if it's something on a similar vein, you know, if it's a cartoon, you know, we'll say it's a cartoon, and you know, is some sleazy mob boss guy. You know, he talks like that, and everything is kind of at this level, but nobody really talks like that in real life. You know, there's not an actual mob boss anywhere in the world that's like, hey, you know, ice that guy, like, screw him. But whereas like in a video game, you know, maybe he just got kind of a thick accent. He talks a little, and he's a little bit dangerous. So, and there's maybe you could see it like kind of a fader or like a level, different layers of character. And then as you get more and more intense, it gets more animated. Maybe he's a smoker or something, you know? So I would say if you back off it and make the characterizations really subtle, that's what's going to sound more realistic and more natural to the ear, and what it's going to come across as a real person rather than a characterization or a caricature. And so that would be more of a video game rather than the animation would be the really over the top. And of course that varies. You know, Disney does video games that are going to be real silly and over the top, or like a cutesy like Candy Crush game is going to be real animated. But for the big budget, like dramatic thrillers, they're going to have people that are a lot more realistic.
The Grand Theft Autos, the Call of Duties, a lot of those first-person shooter type big budget games. That's a great answer, and I hadn't really thought that through in that way before. That because immersion is so important in video games, that the higher degree of realism is necessary versus the, you know, clear out and out caricatures, which are much more common in animation. So
right, which is why, like, if you're doing high energy stuff on a demo, usually it's like soldiers, because that's one of the few instances that you're going to find people that are still like screaming or like real high energy over the top is going to be like in those warfare kind of situations. Otherwise, they'd be talking to me pretty much like I'm talking to you, just real conversational and real.
Very good. Who else has got a question tonight or a comment about video games, animation, how to get into them?
Hello.
Hello there. How you doing,
This
Nate?
is Nate Daniels. I'm a union member, and but I live in BFE, Oregon, and I was just wondering, do you have to live in LA to be in the video gaming part of voice acting? I've done a lot of audio books, and I know how to characterize things, but from what I understand, you pretty much have to be in LA to be in the video game genre. Is that correct?
Well, I think that, to quote the infamous Michael Schwalbe, it depends. I think that, as I understand it, if you want to be in Grand Theft Auto or Candy Crush or a game of that kind of stature, that the expectation is that you're going to be in studio in LA or New York. And it's not just because they want you in studio to direct you. A lot of this now involves motion capture or mocap, as Michael had mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. And you have to be in studio in order to be wearing the body suit with the sensors all over it, so that they can be tracking the movement of your facial expressions and of your body as you are sort of mimicking or acting out the parts. So a lot of that big budget stuff, yeah, you do need to be in Los Angeles or New York or London, and there's some major stuff being done out of Toronto and a couple of Canadian cities as well. But the majority of it is being done out of LA and New York. Although, if I remember right, I think most of the Walking Dead games were all done out of Atlanta. But Michael Schwalbe, who was just speaking, is a great example of a guy that has lived in Nashville for the past, umpteen number of years, and has developed a very lucrative video game business. Thank you very much. As a result of starting small, starting with the indie developers that don't have big needs of you when it comes to motion capture and things like that. You can sit in a studio in Nashville, and either you just feed them the lines, you just record them yourself and give them to them as one big file, or you might have them on a Skype call or something, giving you feedback as you're doing the lines. But it's not as directed, so to speak, as it is when you get up into the Activisions and some of these other big game development companies. So the answer is, it depends. In your particular case, Nate, because you're union, it tends to be the larger games that are looking for union talent, and yeah, you might be looking for, you might be wanting to get into games that are being, voiced out of Los Angeles and New York. Michael, am I correct in saying the Walking Dead franchise was recorded out of Atlanta?
Yeah, it is. All the Telltale games are out of Atlanta. Atlanta is really an up-and-coming place for animation and video game work. A lot of big animated shows like Archer and I think Bob's Burgers are there. The headquarters of Cartoon Network is there, although they still work with talent in LA a lot as well. And just to touch on what you were saying about developing a video game career, from Nashville, really the key wasn't where I was living. The key was that I went to where the developers were. I made a lot of trips for probably 3 straight years to different video game conventions. And then I was militant about writing extremely laborious and detailed follow-up messages to each of the 300 business cards I'd come home with, where, I'd go to their website, watch their stuff so I could talk about what they were doing like I knew what they were doing, that made them think I cared about their work. So yes, you can develop a video game career anywhere, but it's not easy. You can't half-ass your way into it. So if you've got some money to burn to fly to some conventions to meet people face-to-face, and then you're willing to invest the time to really make a good impression on them afterwards, they'll still hire you wherever you are.
Thank God for airlines like Southwest and stuff that make it
Right.
reasonably inexpensive to be able to get to most places you need to get to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Southwest and Motel 6s, and you can actually do it reasonably inexpensively.
my friend Andy Barnett uses Spirit Airlines, and he's constantly like bragging about $75 fares to like all over the place. I'm like, man, that's crazy.
We're going to take a break just for 5 or 7 minutes because I'm going to ask Bob Merkel to come and join me. And Bob, you've got this product, VoiceSam, and I've told you before that I find the whole idea fascinating. I still don't really quite get it. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to take one of the features tonight and explain to us exactly what it is going to do for us to make us more successful as voice actors.
Absolutely. And thanks again for allowing me on the show and to share, with you guys what we're up to. Let me share my screen, speaking of sharing. And am I able to turn on my video? Not quite.
Yeah, please do.
All right. For some reason, it's telling me I can't, but that's okay. We can trudge on here. So we're going to talk about Straight Shot tonight. And Straight Shot is a inbound marketing tool. And we all know what we're trying to do. We're trying to get our voices out there, right? So you send out your demos. I call it send and pray. Pray, Lord, please let them hear it. Let them call me. Let me set up a booking. But this is inbound. And what I mean by that is they're contacting you. And what that means is you are setting up, to give you an example, since a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is an email that I'm sending out. It's a mock-up email. I'm sending it to Steve. My name is Joey Speakeasy, which happens to be my little voiceover name here. And here's the important part. This is Straight Shot working for you down here. So at the end of your close, it says click to hear my latest demos. And these buttons actually lead your recipients to your website and play your demos. And you set it up once. That's the cool thing. You go to VoiceSam. I'm logged into VoiceSam here. And so here, if you haven't seen VoiceSam before, I'll show you the inside of it, and the VoiceSam members know this. So here are all your demos. Your reads are underneath that. And then we click here, and this is Straight Shot. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set up, I won't actually set it up here. It's already set up, but I'm going to enter a tracking code, and this allows you to know who's been clicking on your email signature. And now it's just as easy as dragging these buttons down to the button bar once they go there. And you can drag them in any order you want. So you create a button bar, and then you copy that into your email signature. And that's how this comes about. So every email you send out, this is going to go with it. So it's set up once, and then forget about it. It's always working for you. And I thought, I asked Graham if I could do a little experiment tonight with you folks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link into the chat window. Let me copy that in right now. And before you click on it, if I can find the chat window, where did you go?
Bob, if you just move your mouse over top of the...
There we are. Thank you, Graham. Okay, there you go. So tiny.cc SS demo. So you have to click on it. And what I want you to do is go ahead and click on it, but don't do anything. Let your browser open it up. You'll see a screen that looks something like this. Example email with Straight Shot signatures. So imagine that you're a buyer now. We're going to turn the tables on you, put you in the buyer's role. And you got this email. So you read this email, and it's interesting, and right below the close it says click to hear my latest demos. And at this point, Graham is going to mute you all so that we don't hear your speakers, and I'm going to ask you to turn down your speakers a little bit because it is actually going to play. And so now your job now is to pick one of those demo buttons, one of the 4, commercial, documentary, etc. Go ahead and click it. And that's going to open up a new page in your browser. And before we go any further, I want to tell you what happened. You click that button, and it redirected to your website. So I'm Joey Speakeasy, and up came that demo. If you look at the player on my screen, I clicked Explainer. And if you look at the player, it says Explainer. And why is this important? Well, the buyer might be working on an Explainer project or has one coming up. And so now this inbound marketing, they're coming to you. And now what do? Well, they start playing. So I'm going to ask you now to go ahead and play some reads. And that means click down here. You can click the big play button if you want. Mine's probably going to be super loud. I'll turn that down a little bit. But go ahead and click a few reads, listen to the demos. The reason I'm showing you this is how we can track what people are listening to, and that's called our Zamtistics. So I'll play a few reads. So a couple more seconds of playing, and then I'm going to show you what happens when you play those reads. Okay, so that's enough time. You can keep playing them if you want. So now if you come back to the Zoom screen, you'll see what we call Zamtistics. And that is the analytics built into VoiceZam that shows you what's happening out there in the world with all your demos. And I'm on the players hits screen, which are going to show me the hits that have happened. And I set it from 1208 to 1211. I'm going to retrieve. Oh my goodness, we're getting lots of reads, which is good. So here we got someone in Flemington, New Jersey, a couple in Chicago, Dallas, Austin, et cetera, et cetera. And if you'll notice right here under the portal column, it says eSig. And so this is feeding back to Joey to see how effective his email, his straight shot email signature is. And what we give you is the date and time, the platform it was played on, which demo was played, which read title. And here's the important thing, the duration. So this person in New Jersey, Flemington, played 18 out of the 18 seconds of the narration demo. This person, most of them, here's 6 seconds out of 9, it was 71%. And why that's important is you can see if people are dropping off a certain demo or a certain read, you may want to try reorganizing those reads, which you can do very easily in Straight Shot. And then the final thing I want to show you is really cool. You click on Show on Map, and here's all the places that it's been played. So we're coast to coast here. We got Joey covered. So somebody's near LA, and this must be the person in New Jersey. Chicago here. You won't see my clicks because we filter them out so that we don't bias the Zamtistics. But that gives you insight into your reads. And it's really cool because right now when you send out your demos, you have no knowledge, no feedback of what's going on. And that's just about it, Graham. I think we can turn it over to Q&A, or if you want to do that later, that's fine too.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Bob. What I'm going to suggest to everyone is that Bob has said that he's more than willing to hang out for a couple of minutes when we're done at 10 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Pacific. And we'll just throw it wide open, and you can ask any questions that you might have about VoiceZam, about Straight Shot, about Zamtistics when we close out the animation and video game conversation at 10 o'clock. So, Bob, again, thank you so much for taking us through that. Much appreciated.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here. And see you later, everyone. Anybody has any questions, I'll be hanging out.
Very cool. Okay, so let's get back to animation and video games. Who has questions, comments about animation and video games that they'd like to put forward? I just wanted to once again mention that there's a few of you who I think want to speak but are finding that you're unable to, and that's because I can't unmute you at my end here, and that's because you're not using the latest version of the Zoom app. And it's really a simple fix. All you need to do is go to zoom.us and download the latest version of the Zoom app, and then come on back into the webinar, and then I can unmute you and you can ask any questions you might have. The other option you always have is to use the Q&A box. Just type any questions you might have into there, and I can put them forward to the group for discussion. Or you can use the chat box, whichever is more convenient for you. So once again, the Q&A box, the chat box, and if you are having problems being heard, it's because I can't unmute you from my end. So
I just saw, Graham, that Michael, is it Seasums, had his hand up, And I don't know if he doesn't have a mic, but he maybe wanted to ask a question. I just chatted to him. So
Yeah, Michael, if you could type your question into the Q&A box, because you're one of those people I can't unmute. And that's because you're not using the latest version of Zoom, unfortunately. While we're waiting, maybe I can, just because when we have Michael Schwalbe on the line, he's such an incredible resource. I want to wring every tiny little bit of information out of him that I possibly can. Michael, tell us about your transition to, sorry, just give me a second here. Michael, tell us about your transition to union. What made you decide to leave the non-union world and transition to SAG-AFTRA? And what did that process look like for you?
Well, it's not been as much of a process as it probably should have been. So it's no secret, Tennessee is a right to work state. So for the moment, don't tell the union, I am doing some non-union work still. However, once I get to California,
Tell us, no.
Yeah. Once I get to California, that's not going to be as much of an option. So it's going to be, I guess, kind of a test to see just how much union work I can book. I have booked some substantial union work this year, and I'm looking forward to getting those SAG-AFTRA healthcare benefits finally, and that'll be wonderful. And but you know, I know a lot of extremely successful union actors that are 100% union actors. I know a whole lot that are FICOR members. So I see kind of people at most every state of union membership. So it remains to be seen whether or not I will have to go FICOR or not. I would love to not go FICOR. And for those of you who don't know, FICOR is basically when you announce that you need to do both union and non-union work to support yourself. And so you tell the union that you are going to be a dues-paying non-member. And so you can get SAG kind of the benefits, but you're not officially a member as long as you're in FICOR status. So I would like to not have to do that. But we'll see how that goes. And I'm flying in 2 days, so it'll be an adventure.
Michael, as a dues-paying non-member, as a FICOR, financial core member of the union, are you eligible for the healthcare and pension plans and things like that?
I'm pretty sure you are. You just can't say that you're a SAG-AFTRA member, and you can't. I think you have to either give in your card or like not use your card or something. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that you still get the pension and everything. You just can't call yourself a SAG-AFTRA member.
Well,
and I'm not super knowledgeable on that topic. So,
well, I certainly hope that you're able to make a fantastic living full-time as a SAG-AFTRA actor in Los Angeles without having to resort back to non-union projects.
Well, I'm confident, and the difficult part is, especially in the video game world, is that a lot of these it's just very difficult to get independent game studios to be union, because in order for it to be union, they have to have all their talent to be union, and even still with the new interactive agreement, still just doesn't really work for a lot of studios, because for instance, a SAG-AFTRA guide or scale rather for a video game session is $825.50 for a 4-hour session for up to 3 characters, as long as the production has a production budget of over $250,000. If it's got under, you can use the low budget production, which is $825.50 for 4 hours with up to unlimited characters. But for example, a video game I was working on for the last year called Eternal, that's kind of a card game. We've had I get 700 rolls because each card has 1 or 2 lines. Well, so if they were going to do that under and their budget is over $250,000. So if they were going to do that as a union project, they would have had to spend probably 6 figures on voice talent for, paying each actor $825 for like 3 to 5 lines for 3 roles for 3 cards. And that just doesn't work. So I don't really know what the answer is there. And because video games are just so diverse, some of the game's needs just don't really fit well in SAG guidelines. So I don't know what the answer is really. I would love the union to pay more attention to that, but I think they care more about on camera than they do video games and voiceover.
Well, certainly you're not the first actor to say to me that voiceover in general seems to be the ugly stepchild that the union doesn't like to talk about very often.
Yeah.
So, Michael, there's another Michael on the line tonight asking the question, what are some of the top video game conferences out there?
Man, I just went to Google and I Googled video game conferences. The few that come to mind that are really big, obviously E3 is very large. PAX, P-A-X, it's the Penny Arcade Expo, East, West.
Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, there's it's actually a web comic called Penny Arcade, and then they just decided to make a video game conference, but now it's huge. So PAX is great. I have not gone to PAX myself, but I know a ton of people that do, and they always say it's great. From more of the technical side, there's GDC in San Francisco, which I've gone to several times. That's been great. That's the Game Developers Convention, but that's mostly for pretty much geared toward the people that are making the games, so it's extra good. But a lot of the content is going to be geared towards seminars about new software engines and new rendering, this and that, and new coding stuff. So a lot of the actual content is going to be not really anything you'll understand or that I understand, but there's a good number of game audio folks there too. There's also Game Sound Con in Los Angeles. I am going to that next year, and I know a bunch of people that go to that. That's mostly for the sound designers, audio leads, composers, things like that. But those are still good people for you to know. There's a bunch of them, man. I would say Comic-Con is not very good. It's very fan-centric, and then it's also more kind of, comics than video games. But if there's a Comic-Con in your city, you might as well go. You never know who you run into.
And when you walk up to a booth at GDC, what are the titles of the people that you're often looking to speak to? Like the sound designer? Is there who are the people that are most likely to be hiring the actors?
Sure. Man, I better start charging for all this info. It really depends because patented. It depends because each studio is different size. So you might be talking to a studio of 3 people, in which case all the talent are going to be hired by the CEO or studio head. But then you might have some that are sound designer, some that are audio lead, some that are just it might just say audio. In some cases, it'd be creative director. It just depends. Usually you can just ask and say, after you play their game for a bit, so they think you care about what they're working on, you can say, I'm a voice actor myself. I'd love to work with you guys. If that's a need you have, who should I talk to about that? And they'll say, oh, well, here, it's so-and-so, or let me get you his card, or here's my card, email me and I'll forward it, or whatever. And then email them.
Michael, do you have to be a gamer to act in games?
No, but it really helps.
Are you a gamer?
I am a huge gamer. I play way too many video games. And it's also fun then because, especially Eternal, I love card games and strategy games. I've put 700 something hours into that game this year just because I love it. It helps just because then you can identify this character is X character in another game that I know. So this is probably the vibe that they're going for. Or I had a game that they wanted some orcs And I was like, what should I do for orcs? That's like a very, do I do like Lord of the Rings orcs and so I wound up going like just looking up different orcs from different video games and how they talked. And so kind of settling on another game that was sort of similar. And it wasn't like a special orc. They just wanted that generic orc read, which is kind of, for some reason, now is associated with Cockney. So it's like, meat's back on the menu, boys. Like, are we gonna bash the humies? Like stuff like that. And so knowing that these other characterizations are in these other games helps me to identify what the kind of direction they probably want their character to go with is. It's the same as like saying, well, can you be a commercial actor if you've never watched any commercials? Probably, but it would really help.
I know that on YouTube, as an example, there's an entire industry out there of people who play games professionally, and you can watch them playing on YouTube. And so I guess maybe if someone wasn't like I'm just not coordinated enough to be successful at a first-person shooter. I'm never going to get deep enough into the plot in order to learn anything because I'm going to be dead before then. So I find that going on to YouTube and just watching some of these guys and women playing these video games is research enough.
Absolutely. And I do that quite a lot too. And actually, I would say a lot of the largest YouTubers on the whole platform do that. It's called Let's Players. So they're like, let's play such and such game. And so if you look up like, I don't know, World of Warcraft, Let's Play, that it'll come up with people doing these kind of playthroughs of the video games. And then you can listen to it, hear the voices, but some of them are kind of annoying, especially the ones that like gear themselves towards kids. And so then they're just going to be like screaming and doing stupid profanity-laced tirades on top of the game, so you probably won't hear the game very much. So make sure you pick somebody that you're actually going to be able to get something out of if you follow them.
Yeah, I've discovered that my best resource is my 17-year-old nephew. That's who I go to for research now on video game audio. I just get him to play it, and I can just sit there and watch and listen. Anyone else have any questions or comments out there about video games, about animation?
Hey, Graham, I noticed Bill Smith has a question. Can you offer suggestions for sample scripts for computer games and animation?
Thanks, Bob. Sample scripts so you can practice gaming and animation. Well, there's always the Edge Studio website. So you go to edgestudio.com, and they've got over 5,000 scripts there of all different genres, including video games and animation. Not so many video games, though, and that library does get updated, but not as frequently maybe as we'd all like. So I'm not sure if there's a lot of current stuff there when it comes to like Grand Theft Auto 5 or something like that. I doubt that there's scripts there of that type. But certainly there is stuff there. The other option you always have is to go to YouTube and go, Grand Theft Auto 5 Let's Play, and just transcribe some of the dialogue that you're going to find. The other thing I find is if there's a particular character in one of these games, like Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5, and that's played by a guy named Stephen Ogg, who's just a psychopath in real life in addition to being a psychopath as Trevor. He's a great actor. But if you just look up Trevor, Grand Theft Auto 5, you can get like 20, 30, 40-minute edits of compilations of Trevor's best lines from Grand Theft Auto 5. So you do have the ability of just going and taking some of that stuff off of YouTube and just transcribing it. And in most cases for video games, I would think that would be the best source of scripts. Michael, unless you've got something that's different or better, transcribe.
Transcriptions. It's the way to go.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Anybody else have any questions about video games, about animation?
Yes, I have a question.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, this is Cynthia. Hi, Graham.
Hello, Cynthia. You've got an awesome voice.
Thank you. Well, that's what I like to do. I like to do video games, but I'm guessing I probably do better hitting the market that has to do with children. So, do you know how to get in contact with people who like do Leapfrog and other educational video games for children?
Well, you're probably setting your sights in the right area, because doing the next Call of Duty is probably not going to be in your future. But you've got an incredible voice. So there's a couple of other actors out there I know that have that kind of voice that never grew up, sort of thing, and that have a sound similar to yours and have done incredibly well as a result, because you can hire kids who sound like the way you sound, but then the problem is you have to deal with kids, and it's not always easy working with a 5-year-old kid to come up with to do a 4-hour session, as compared to working to like a young adult or an adult who happens to sound like a 5-year-old kid. That's awesome, because you can take direction, you can work for a 4-hour session, but you can still deliver the performance that they're looking for. With regards to specifically finding places to reach out to Leapfrog and other developers of talking toys and games like that, my advice would be to do what Michael did, and that is, you literally either go to conferences where a lot of these talking toys and video games oriented towards children are going to be featured, or to literally just, you've got a very special gift in your voice, and I think that, believe me, if you phone up or if you were to email with a voice recording to the right person within these organizations, you're going to get someone's attention to at least speak with you for a few minutes, I would think. So, a lot of this is doing what Michael Schwalbe did, and that is Google is your best friend. Get on Google and just start digging, deeper and deeper and deeper to find out, how many contacts, how many names you can find that are associated with these companies like Leapfrog. And I think that you're going to have a lot of success. And I certainly wish you a lot of success. You sound awesome.
Oh, thank you, Graham.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we're just about out of time. Let's call it a night there when it comes to animation and video games. But for those of you who are interested in hanging out and asking any questions that you might have of Bob Merkel from VoiceSam, you're more than welcome to stick around with us. So I want to thank Bob and VoiceSam for sponsoring the show tonight. Don't forget to use promo code OpenMic, and you can double the length of your free trial period from 15 days to 30 days. Give it a shot. Also want to remind you that I've partnered up with Kate McClanahan on Straight Talk VO, which is a new vlog that we're starting, and you can find us on YouTube. Please check us out on YouTube and hit subscribe if you have a chance to listen to one of our episodes. And if you like it, hit subscribe. It helps us out a lot. So until next Sunday, work hard, audition a ton, book lots of work. And for those of you who want to stick around and have a conversation with Bob about VoiceSam, we're here for you. And Bob, with that said, I'll turn it over to you.
We are here for you. So if you have a question, you can chat it in. I'm looking at the chat box, and also chime in on your microphone. And Graham, just as a side note, I'm still unable to turn on my video because the host has stopped it.
And I don't know what that's about, but what I will do is...
So while he's working on that, any questions I can answer about Straight Shot or VoiceAm in general, if you'd like.
So Bob, I have promoted you to co-host. You should be able to start your video now. There we go.
I'm the mountain man here. I got my little shirt on here with, I'm in Wisconsin, where it's nice and cold, folks. If you love the cold, come to Wisconsin right now.
So Bob, we still have a number of people on the line. So obviously there's some interest in VoiceAm. Why don't you start at the very basics? What is VoiceAm and what does it do in the most simple of language? What does it do to help voice actors?
I can do that. Let me share my screen. So the typical demo, as you know, is a single line, what I call a single line MP3 demo. You click it and it plays from one end and it just keeps playing to the other end. And the problem with that is that, and I used to be a buyer, listen to thousands of demos, still do. And the problem with that is there's really different performances within that demo. It's very frustrating for a buyer they like the voice and the first read, as we call them, but they want to skip ahead. They want to get to the next one. And what we've done, what the industry done is put the buyer in a passive position where they just have to be held hostage and wait throughout the 60-second demo or even the 66-second read demo. And what VoiceAm does is it puts the control back in the buyer's hands. So if you see this example here on my screen, this is a full demo. All these 5 reads, that would be your 60-second demo, explainer demo. I'll go to the commercial here. So now the buyer listens to the first read, and if they don't particularly care for that delivery, they can skip. That's the essence of the VoiceAm player. Now, there's a whole bunch behind it, which has to do with analytics and different ways that you can market yourself. We just came out with a search engine that is really cool. Maybe another time I can demonstrate that. But that's really what VoiceAm is all about. And it's one more thing I'll show you before I jump to the questions here. This is your showcase. So here's your demo, and under the demo you have all your reads. Now, people think there's a misunderstanding out there in the industry that VoiceAm doesn't play a demo exactly like an MP3 demo would be, what I call an MP3. I'm going to take you to, there's a great comparison out here. So here's your typical demo, and here's the VoiceAm demo. If you close your eyes and listen to the demo in SoundCloud, it sounds exactly like the one in VoiceAm. There's absolutely no difference. We perfected something called seamless playback, and when the first this read ends, jumps right into the next one. There's no pause, there's no lag. Producers love it because now they get to control. So I see somebody has their hand up.
There's a question from Steve asking, is Straight Shot that you demonstrated for us earlier, is that included as part of the VoiceAm product, or do you have to pay extra for that?
It's an extra add-on. By the way, if you want to know pricing, it's on our website, which is right here, and I'll go through it quickly. So here's pricing. So base membership for VoiceAm is $8.95 per month. That includes the player customization, putting it on your website, unlimited demos, unlimited reads. You can upload as much as you want and set up as many demos as you want. Then you get into some add-ons. So Zamtistics is what we were just talking about. That's $4.95 a month. And that was where you can see who has hit your player and the mapping and such. Zamtistic. And then Straight Shot is what we're looking at. That's $2.95 a month. We also offer video in VideoZam. And what that looks like is this. So I used a VideoZam link. It jumps to my site and plays the demos right in the video demos right in the player, and you can skip. Same thing. Let's see what else. Zamfusion's a little complicated to talk about. It's an auditioning response mechanism that works out great for buyers. And then SEO is our SZO is our SEO optimization for your website, and it boosts your website's rankings in the search engines.
Question from Michael. Can you tell us about some of the new search features and how we can set up our demo tagging for best results?
Sure, absolutely. Synapse is our new search engine, and it's what drives the final search engine site. This is right now we're allowing the talent to use it to get their tagging set up, and they can be found. And the talent are actually able to try it right now. So it's voicesam.com search. And I guess you could try this now too and see how it works even before you become a member. And so I'm a buyer and I'm looking for a particular voice. And one of the things I've noticed in the industry, and maybe you know this, is genre isn't that important anymore because people are looking for a particular voice. So they're not going into it, and many buyers aren't even aware that there's genres, and I'm talking about the corporate in-house media centers that are putting out explainers within the companies and that sort of thing. And here's the specific mentality of these people. They need a voice, they need it now, and they'll even book you right off their demo. So this is what this is for. So if I want a male, and I want them to be upbeat and maybe personable, because I'm doing a cool explainer video for my company. This is very much, it uses natural language going in. It's very similar to Google. So you type that in and now we have a lot of names. And this is important because these are not, I'm going to play you different clips. These are the reads within your demo. And here's a distinction. There are many search engines out there that will search talent demos. But then you have to listen to the demo and find the read you want. Well, here we take the individual demos and we tag them. And now the reads within your demo can be found. So I'm going to play some of these. Sports Vision has developed an instrument. It began as McGrew transformed their home. Some bowlers. So what would a buyer do? Well, they listen to them and maybe at this point they go, well, I like John Drew. I'm going to click on this and find out where I can get a hold of John Drew. So this is his player. This is the Synapse player featuring all of John Drew's demos and reads, and also there's contact information. They can also do a short list. So I might want to say I want this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, since I search for a male. There are some times, and I will be honest with you, where buyers say, you know, the voice is not right for the reads, so you can turn them off. And now Synapse will never play that voice in this particular search. And that's very helpful. Remember, we're serving, well, I guess I'm serving two masters. I'm serving the talent, and I'm also serving the producers as well. So this is really a tool for the producers that, again, it's inbound marketing for you because you set it up once with your tagging, and then they listen. So once you get a short list, you can create your short list. And now I can send this short list to my client. So maybe I'm an agent or something like that, and I'm working on behalf of a hardware store. I can send them this URL. They can go through all the reads. They can see who the representation is. I'm really flying through this fast. Try it yourself. It's pretty cool. And please give us some feedback. There's a nice little feedback box here. So I hope that answers whose question was that? Was that Michael, I thought?
That was Michael, yep.
Okay, Michael. And for the tagging, I can demonstrate that real quick. So I'm going to put a crazy tag in here like Graham. I tagged It's Shiny, It's Blue as Graham. And now I'm going to search for Graham. I'll just copy and paste. I want to hear a Graham voice. And where's the Graham voice? I don't see it in here. Graeme. That's why you never try things that you haven't rehearsed. Anyway, this is where you do your tagging. So I would say upbeat here. I could do personable and fun and crazy. And this can happen in any type of genre you want. When people do the searches, they can also do female, commercial, I don't know, smooth. Let's hear smooth voice.
Bob, is there a limit to how many tags I can associate with each read?
we allow 20 tags per read, which is quite a bit actually.
Oh, it's a lot, yeah.
So we've got female commercial smooth. Can you hear that, Graham?
We can hear it through your monitors. We don't hear
sorry about that.
feeding through directly.
Okay. Well, go play with it. It's voiceam.com/search. Any other questions on this while we're on it? Oh, we also have video in here as well. So here's some videos. There's Jody Kringle. And you can do filters. So if you want union or non, or you want a certain experience level, which is really important sometimes, what facilities you work with, the different facilities. And this is another important one. How quickly can you turn this around for me? And I'll tell you folks, there's a trend, and I just heard it from somebody on Friday who said, I've been booked right off my demo at least twice a month, or right off my website. A good booking job. She said it was mostly from Europe, but it's happening. And these are people who need voices. They need them now. They don't even know the whole audition system. They do it right off the website, which is cool for you. It's a new market.
Fantastic. Bob, thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging out for a few minutes and answering a few questions. And we're going to do this once a month where you get to tell us another new feature of VoiceAmp.
Well, that's great. If you want to write me any questions, you can do it at bob.merkel@voiceam.com. I'm going to type that in. And thank you so much, Graham, for having me. It was a pleasure being with you folks. And see you next time. Thanks
Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.